Hello and welcome to Making Sense, brought to you by Navy Federal Credit Union. I'm your host, Thomas Racca, and today we're talking about something that can affect anyone, often with very little warning: natural disasters. Whether it's a hurricane, wildfire, flood, or winter storm, emergencies don't just disrupt your daily life, they can also create serious financial stress. And while we can't always control the event itself, we can take steps to prepare financially before it happens. So today we're talking about how to storm-proof your finances, what to do before, during, and after a disaster to better protect your money, your household, and your peace of mind. I'm joined by Luz Cordero, our AVP of Branch Operations for San Diego and Hawaii. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the invite. It's my pleasure.
This is such an important topic for us to cover. But before we jump in, I'd love for our listeners to just get to know you a little bit. Where are you from and what brought you to Navy Federal?
Awesome. Yes. Well, born and raised in San Diego. I was previously a military spouse for about 18 years, traveled throughout United States. Really did give me an opportunity to understand the different climates, to include snowstorms and ice storms and floods and fire areas. And so the topic is true and dear to my heart. Joined Navy Federal in 2010 and have, again, the opportunity to manage an amazing crew of individuals, both in San Diego and Hawaii.
We certainly have a variety of different disasters that can happen in different parts of the country. So I'm sure you're going to give us some great info to tackle each of them. So, financial preparedness can sometimes feel like something that we'll get to later on, and then later on never comes. And quickly we find that our circumstances can change. Luz, I'm curious, has there ever been a moment that made you think differently about the importance of having a financial safety net or an emergency fund?
Great question. As you indicated, we can't always prepare for a natural disaster. Last year, we had a small Cessna plane crash into military housing back in June of last year, actually. And it really impacted the military community. There was 42 families impacted. And if you can imagine, at 3:37 in the morning, having to rush out of your home, they left their homes with whatever they had on their backs. They left without cars and car seats and food. And so now these families find themselves having to navigate how to handle basic living needs, basic food, housing, transportation. And so I will tell you, I am proud to work for Navy Federal and the military community, the organizations in San Diego. They assisted when 10 homes were destroyed, 10 homes were damaged, one destroyed. There was 19 cars affected. And if you can imagine, jet fuel just was dispersed throughout the area. And we came together as a community and really helped these families. So that is really what comes top of mind.
That's genuinely an incredible story to get us kicked off. And I think that really drives home the point of families needing to take steps to anticipate something. Because to your point, stuff tends to happen at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. We're not thinking clearly. So, one of my favorite things to say is dig the well before you're thirsty, right? Let's make sure that we've taken steps to try and mitigate that. With that being said, I'm curious, what are some of the tips that you give to members or family members for financial preparedness, and how do you go about creating a household emergency plan?
Ideally, the goal and the advice we give is we need to work towards financial resiliency by waiting for a disaster to happen and for us to respond. We save for vacations and we save for college and we save for holidays and birthdays. Disaster awareness and being ready should be one of the items we save for. And so when we have individuals come into the branch, we talk about start small. Try to start saving a bit each month. Maybe take some of your taxes and put it aside. And that way you are ready so that if there is a disaster, your financial impact will be minimized.
Yeah, I always love the idea of treating yourself like a bill. Make sure that you pay yourself and you have that little bit of buffer built in, because it's not a matter of if, it's always
It's
going to be
when.
a matter of when.
It's when.
Exactly.
And if you can make it automatic, make it so that it is an automatic transfer from your account into your emergency account. Label it so that when you look at your account through your mobile app, you see the difference that you're making. Have a goal. Find out what your monthly bills would amount to, so you know that is where you're stretching to. If you could have 1 month's worth of bills taken care of, imagine the relief that would come if and when there was an emergency and your family was in fact impacted.
That's so important, Luz. We talk about how stressful these events can be, but really an ounce of prevention can be worth a pound of care, right? Just what steps can you take to mitigate the chaos that's going around you? You lose property, heaven forbid you have some injuries in the family. The last thing that you want to worry about is how are you going to come up with a nominal amount to get housing for the night?
Exactly. And I always think about, if you ask yourself, if blank happened tomorrow, would my family be financially able to respond? And that is a question you should ask yourself. And if the answer is no, this is the perfect time to get a savings account started.
So I'd really like to jump into that. What does that actually look like? In today's world, you want to take steps to build that emergency fund, but so many people are unaware of what that first step can look like. And I love the talk of the automation and making it making it handy. Look at tax time, look at these different opportunities, but what steps do you take just to get the ball rolling?
I would say the first step would be self-awareness of what monies is needed on a monthly basis buys what is good to have. So whether you do it electronically or with pencil and paper, jot down what does it take for your family to live and what's needed. So rent, mortgage, utilities, any insurance, any loans, any auto loans, daycare, food, any medical expenses. That is a great start, because at least at that point you have an idea of what is needed to survive should there be a disaster.
One of the things that makes me think of is your important documents and things that you need to keep on hand. And I'm curious if people tend to lose sight of that, thinking it's not going to happen to them. Do you have any advice around different ways people can prepare beyond their finances?
I would say have a folder ready and have it communicated with your family, and not only your family that lives in your home, but also extended family, because when there is a disaster, it will impact further than your immediate family. So think about things such as insurance. Do I have all the insurance paperwork? Is there any documents that I should be backing up? What does my home inventory look like? Do I have pictures on hand? Are they safeguarded? Cash is always king when it comes to a disaster. And so, one of the things that I have been taught is you should always have small bills ready and available, fives, tens, 20s, in case that electronically you cannot get to your money. My dad, as long as I can remember, has a small vault in his home and he is ready. And one of the things he's taught us is you need to rely on yourself. And if there is a disaster where there electronically you cannot get to your money, he always has in his vault small amounts of five, tens, and 20s. And so it just allows us to be ready. And I kind of have followed suit. I've thought that has been great advice, and I have the same in my home.
I love that advice. Let's say you've taken some steps to prepare yourself, or let's say you haven't taken steps and something does happen. I'm curious if you could talk about maybe what some short-term support options might look like for people out in the community.
I'm on the board for the Armed Services YMCA. And when there was that small aircraft that crashed into the military housing, I can tell you that the state and the federal government had programs on the ready. I can also tell you that many of different financial organizations or just nonprofits came together and they really made a difference for these families. And so I guess what I'm saying is it takes a community. And so you were really never alone. You would have the help from different organizations and agencies.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. My department here at Navy Federal, Personal Finance Management, we talk to folks all the time that are going through different financial hardships. And on occasion, it could be a disaster. But I can tell you, rarely do we speak to someone who's in the state of mind to be clear headed. It's so natural to have a fight or flight reaction and to assume the worst case scenario, that this really is such an important thing to just take a little bit of time to set yourself up to give you a little bit of a buffer. So when this stuff does occur, some of it might become automatic, right? The savings habits that you're talking about, giving you that buffer.
Absolutely. And so three words come to mind. Prepare. Prepare yourself, prepare your family, protect yourself or protect your family, and be ready for the recovery portion.
That's fantastic. You talked about the physical cash, having that on hand, but there is something to be said for the digital space as well, right?
Absolutely.
What does that look like?
With regards to the digital space, you want to make sure that you have your debit card access to your checking and quick money. When I think about savings or savings programs, I always think about how much you want to have liquid and accessible, how much do you want to have tied up, let's say, in a certificate, and then, of course, you have your stocks and bonds and other investments. But again, it's being able to have quick money available to you in case of an emergency.
So let's talk about some of the other side of things that can come up with these disasters. Unfortunately, this can uncover some scam and fraud opportunities. In fact, I would say I've heard more horror stories about folks that might descend on an area and increase the scams due to all of this uncertainty. I'm curious if you have any experience with that.
I don't have experience, but I can tell you I've read and heard the same stories. And the best advice I could give is, work through any challenge you have, do your due diligence, vet the company, make sure that you are working out of knowledge, vice, emotion. Because you said something earlier in that there's so much going on. It's so easy to get wrapped up on in with everything that's happening. And so when you see something that looks good, and maybe looks too good, chances are it might not be a valid or maybe a scam. And so do vet anything that comes your way to make sure that you're keeping yourself, your money safe and your family safe.
I had neighbors in Florida that told me stories after Hurricane Ivan, and power was out, water was out, internet was out, and people would come through claiming to be from FEMA or Red Cross, and they would offer discounted vouchers, or they'd start work on a home, and they would get a check in hand, and then 2 days later, they couldn't find any sign of the individuals. It was increasingly difficult to vet, to check, because there simply didn't have the infrastructure in place to call up the internet and look up the phone number or look up the website. And sometimes I think folks can get really creative. I've seen or I've heard stories of folks that will put up a fake website with fake testimonials because all they're trying to do is last a week, do a cash grab and get out. Truly some scary stories out there for people to be mindful of.
I definitely have, as you mentioned, I had friends from Florida who shared that their next door neighbor, a contractor came and wanted to fix their roof, took half of the payment down, and that was the end of them. They never heard from them again. And so make sure that you do your due diligence and sometimes just soliciting the help of others, friends, families, local organizations, making sure that you do solicit additional help because there are times where you are limited and your information is limited or resources. Just reach out beyond to make sure that you know that there's other resources beyond yourself that can possibly help in the process.
Let's talk a little bit about some of those other resources. We've really focused a lot on what our members can do to prepare financially, but that happens on the organizational side as well. When disasters happen, what are some of the things that Navy Federal does to prepare to support our impacted members, including those who may go to a branch for help or guidance?
First and foremost, education is at the forefront of Navy Federal interactions with members. And so, whether it's a disaster or not, our team members are prepared to talk through the different stages of individuals' lives along with disasters that might come up. The second thing is we do a phenomenal job as an organization putting out resources providing links, providing areas that can help, and then making sure that you're aware of even government organizations and links accordingly. So Navy Federal does a great job of communicating out if there's an incident and being able to communicate resource tools and available areas that can support, along with MakingCents. I think that is a great resource that we have.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo that. Our Making Sense website, NavyFederal.org, and you will see the link in the show notes. There are a wide number of digital resources, videos, articles available. Whatever part of this speaks to you, I encourage you to take a little bit of time, click in there, and see what's available. So, Luce, you talked a little bit about the steps that our members can take, but I'm curious, are there any financial relief opportunities that Navy Federal might offer to help as a part of the response as well?
Navy Federal is always quick to step up when there is a disaster or relief needed. I would ask individuals to check our landing page, check to see if your specific area has been impacted, whether you contact our contact center or visit a branch. We would be more than happy to work with you and provide you all the resources available that we have, whether it's an emergency loan, account, or loan mitigations, whether it's an extension. We are here to support you.
I love that. And supporting our communities really is something that has made me so proud to be employed here for 20 years. I'm curious, with your experience, how do you see Navy Federal supporting our communities beyond just the individual member assistance?
I would say we are here to not only support our members but support our communities. And so day in and day out, we are looking for opportunities to engage with the community, to be ready to step up, step in. And if I think about, for example, the crash over at the Murphy Canyon last year, Navy Federal quickly stepped in. We provided over 42 employees within 2 days to help with the sorting of clothes and the donations. There was donations from different parts of San Diego and organization. Employees quickly stepped in and donated for specifically for those families. So checks were provided to the Armed Services YMCA and to STEP, which is the two organizations that were really leading the assistance within that area. So again, we not only are here to help with financial matters, we are here because we're part of the community and want to make a difference.
I love all of that. I want to come back to just our broader theme and talking about protecting what matters most. Disaster preparedness is such a big part of our financial protection overall, and this is a great reminder to check the systems that you have in place, look at your saving strategy, look at your paycheck allocations, double check your insurance coverage, look at your beneficiaries, look at your benefits, and see what kind of long-term planning decisions you've already made or that you still might need to make. A crisis can certainly point out some of the gaps in your plan, but ideally, the time to make those adjustments is today before, well, as I like to say, pay attention to the smoke alarm and you won't need the fire extinguisher. Protecting what matters most really means looking at your emergency plan and the long-term financial goals that underpin the entire thing.
And you just said it, protect what matters most. And so if you are planning for example, a vacation, or if you're planning for Christmas, plan for an emergency. Plan to take care of your family in case there is a disaster. It's equally, if not more important.
Yeah, something that I think is so topical is in today's world, we are seeing planning for those Christmas expenses earlier and earlier. We're seeing
Yes.
planning for the back to school expenses earlier and earlier. We're seeing advertising for that starting practically before the last school year is out, right? So as we're trying to stretch our dollars, it's important not to lose sight of something that might happen and recognize that this needs to be a part of our financial plan.
Absolutely. You hit it on the head. We plan for everything, and this should just be on the list of items that we are also planning for.
Luce, this has been a great conversation. I'm going to take a moment just to give one final reminder. While preparing your finances is important, it's key to know that you're not alone. During times of crisis, organizations like Navy Federal work really hard to remain available, provide support resources, and help our members navigate the path to recovery. Staying informed, staying connected, that's just as important as the steps that you take before a disaster even occurs. Thank you so much for joining us, Luz.
It has been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. And thanks to all of you for listening to Making Sense. Until next time, take care and keep making sense of your money.
Navy Federal Credit Union is federally insured by the National Credit Union Administration. This podcast is intended to provide general information and shouldn't be considered legal, tax, or financial advice. It's always a good idea to consult a tax or financial professional for specific information on how certain laws may apply to your individual financial situation. References to and participation with the military community does not constitute organizational endorsement. Navy Federal is an equal housing lender. Navy Federal Credit Union are members of the mission.